All right, welcome back to the Youth Mini Mike podcast. We are filming episode 4 today. We're talking about the book of Acts. So we're just going to dive right in. We've been reading Acts in our student leadership group here at Youth Group, and we wanted to talk a little bit about like books of the Bible, what it's all about. So, anyways, I'm Cole. This is Stella, and we're diving in. So
He won't let me talk.
No,
Uh-huh.
I will. You're going to talk about the books of Acts because you've been reading it and loving it, right? So
I have, which is really shocking.
Before we dive in, like, what is your favorite book of the Bible?
My favorite book of the Bible? I don't know. That's such a loaded question. I don't know why I put that in the notes to talk about. What's yours?
I didn't put it in the notes.
Mine? I know, I put it in. I put it in the notes. I don't know why I did that.
My favorite book of the Bible, it probably... I was going to say that it changes, but then I was thinking, like, probably Psalms, because I feel like Psalms just meets you wherever you're at.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing terrible, there's a psalm for that. You're doing great, there's a psalm for that.
Yeah.
You want to, like, experience more of God, there's a psalm for that. So, I like Psalms.
Yeah. I think, actually, I feel like I haven't read it in a while, but I think my favorite would be Esther, the book of Esther.
Oh, yeah.
I just love that story, and I've always loved that story, so.
Triumphant woman in the Bible.
Yeah.
I can see your character, like Stella in the real world, identifying with Esther.
100%.
Yeah.
Always have, always will.
Would you ever use marriage to save your people?
I don't know. Maybe.
Honestly, so I don't know. We're gonna go on a tangent here just for a second, but like, I've been reading through the Bible in 30 days. It's the Shred, inspired by Nathan Finocchio.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I love it. I'm behind, but that's okay because I'm reading it still, and I will get done in 30 days despite being behind. I just need, like, I'm gonna be on vacation here in a little bit, and I'm gonna have a 3-hour plane ride, and the Bible will literally be playing in my ears the entire time.
Oh, you listen to it? That makes sense.
Listen and read at the same time. You have to, otherwise you just like zone out.
Oh yeah, my senses.
This is mass. Like, it is the biggest feast of bread of life that you've ever feasted on. Anyways, as I'm reading through it, you just don't realize how many stories symbolize someone laying down something that, like, the sign of humility. So you have, like, an example being Esther, like, laying down her life, essentially, her marriage, her hope, her future, for the sake of her people. Just like Jesus laid down his life, just like David laid down his life to be king, like Saul laid down his life to be king, even though he was kind of a trash king at some points, but like really good. Like, all in the beginning, it's just like almost there's this like hero act of like laying down something that you would hold so dear to your heart. It's really cool. So
I love seeing that theme throughout, like, the whole Bible. I love seeing that
humility, just like boom, 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 and then you see pride rise up, and it's like, you don't have humility, get whacked.
get whacked.
Like, literally, you know. That's why it's so important that we are humble, because when we're not, we get whacked by God's hand of discipline, which is very healthy.
I love that
Scary.
that humbleness is a theme throughout the Bible, because it's so important. Because as people, it's so easy for us to be like, I got this, and just be like really prideful. And I think it's really important.
It is,
because it's also one of the ways that we're most like Jesus too, is being humble. So
yeah, that we can be most like Jesus,
or we can be most, not Jesus, but most like him.
Yeah. So, that's fun. You didn't say your favorite book of the Bible, Esther. Oh, you did. I said Psalm. You said Esther.
Yeah.
You said Esther because you hope to be her, and I said Psalms because I identify with David's grief and joy in the same sentence.
Perfect.
Anyways, so let's talk a little bit about some of the stories in Acts. You have in the notes here that you want to talk about Acts 22.
Yeah, so this is like, specifically I want to talk about Paul, because he's in like majority of Acts. He's in like, I think, half of it, and then the rest of it, I believe.
I mean, he's kind of in the whole thing. What do you mean?
Well, like halfway through, and then it just follows him the rest of the way through.
Sure. So like he becomes more like the main character. Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Got you.
And this is the second time I read it, and the first time I read it, I'm gonna be honest, I was not into it at all. I was just like,
she'd be skimming.
That's literally it was just like, that's cool. Oh, you did that.
Cool story, bro.
That's really literally.
Yeah.
So then
sometimes I feel like when you read such outlandish things, it's not outlandish, but like it's wild. Like,
it is.
5,000 people were added to their number, and I was like, yeah, what? Like 5,000? Like, yeah.
So one was healed literally from death. Like Paul did that in the Bible. Like, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
you raise this guy from
Uh-huh.
death, and you're just like, that's not real. I mean, it is real, but
Exactly.
it's not real.
It's
You're like,
hard to
it's
place
really hard to,
ourselves
yeah,
because it was so
super hard
long
to
ago.
fathom.
Yeah.
And it's not something you hear about happening all the time, even though it probably does. Like somewhere on the earth, someone's
Mhm.
been raised from the dead in the last year. I would almost like
Yeah.
say that I could guarantee it. I don't know how I would guarantee it, but I feel like God is that real and that
Google.
much at work.
Yeah.
Like I've heard testimonies of crazy things happening, not that specifically, but such cool things that I don't believe because not
Yeah.
that I don't believe, but I struggle to believe because I wasn't there.
Mhm.
So long story short, we're in Acts
We're in
22.
Acts.
Acts 22. Tell us
So
why
yeah.
we want to look at it.
So this is basically Paul's testimony of what happened. So Paul used to be Saul because he was persecuting people and he was killing people. He was not a good dude.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's the last. I really like his story too because I feel like he's the last person that you would expect that would do all these crazy things for God and just to
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's really cool too. But yeah, it's just this is kind of like he tells his testimony in chapter 22 and it just kind of sums it up. But should I just start reading it?
If you want to.
Or should I just like sum it up basically?
Both. It's just like
All right.
a mix of both.
Yeah, okay. So Paul was traveling to Damascus. That's how you say it, right?
Yeah, Damascus.
Perfect.
A nice little town on the edge of somewhere.
I don't know where that is. Yeah. And he's on the road to Damascus, and it says like a bright light like flashed around him, and then he like fell to the ground.
Mhm.
And he answers. It says he answered, "Who are you, Lord?" And then he answered, and he says, like, "I'm Jesus of Nazareth, the one that you've been persecuting." And wait, hold on. Ah, ha, ha, ha. Well,
And
I'm Jesus of Nazareth, the one you are persecuting, and everyone else that he was with, because he was with people traveling to Damascus. They all saw this light too.
yeah.
And Paul, like, he asked, "What should I do, Lord?" And then the Lord told him to go up and go into Damascus, and there you will be told, there you will be, and there you will be told everything that you have been assigned to do. So Jesus had someone in Damascus that he wanted Paul to go see, so then Paul could understand more of like why this was happening to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Paul became blind. So then the people that he was with led Paul to Damascus to meet this guy that the Lord had planned for him to meet.
The guy, Ananias.
Yeah, Ananias, that's what it was. And then Ananias, what did he do? He like talked to Paul.
Yeah, he said, "The God of our ancestors
Yeah.
has chosen you to know his will and to see the righteous one and to hear words from his mouth. You will be his witness to all people of what you have seen and heard. And now what are you waiting for? Get up and be baptized and wash your sins away, calling on his name."
Yeah, yeah. And then that was when, because that Paul was blind. So when that happened, and then the scales fell from his eyes. That's what he said.
Yeah, after 3 days without food or water.
Yeah, because he had traveled.
He had to fast.
Man,
This
that's
is like
crazy. That's such a crazy story. I forget.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild. That's
Mm-hmm.
the whole of it isn't all here in 22, but
No, it just kind of sums it up a little bit.
it does sum it up.
Because I didn't want to read the whole entire chapter.
No. And
Not on this.
Nobody
not
wants
on
to
the
listen
podcast.
to us anyways. But yeah, no, it's really good. It's a really cool
Mhm.
story.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really easy to use that too as a great like analogy or like point to show
Mm-hmm.
like that a point to show that
Yep. You got this.
that it doesn't matter like what you've done wrong.
Yeah.
God can like humble you by
Yeah.
hitting you off of your horse and blinding you.
Yeah.
And then saying like, here's what I actually want you to do. Not that like we're all gonna get knocked off our horses, but like
figuratively, you can get knocked off this high horse that you are.
yeah,
believe that
everything's
you're
going
on.
great.
So
Life is good. I'm
Yeah.
chilling. You're chilling. And then all of a sudden, like, whoops, you've been doing it the wrong way all along.
Yeah.
And in Saul's case, Saul Paul, right? He didn't actually know he was doing it wrong. He thought he was doing it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the most interesting part about it. Is it's
Uh-huh.
like he's like
He believed his intentions were good. Like that's what he truly believed that they were.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And from what I understand, he like didn't even come under conviction. He like really thought what he was doing was right until
Mhm.
Jesus was like, dude, this guy is not doing
Stop
it right.
it.
Stop doing it
Stop it.
wrong.
Don't
Which
do
I
that.
think is really cool and like really redemptive in the fact that like he
Mhm.
was trying to follow the God of the Bible at the
Mhm.
time, but wasn't doing it with the knowledge of who Jesus really was.
Mhm.
So it's cool that God saved him from that.
Yeah, that's kind of why I love Paul's story so much, is the redemption part of it, because it applies to, I would say, like, probably everyone at some point in their life, that like you do something and then you feel like you did something, you did something wrong, and then you feel like because you made that mistake, like there's no point to you, like you just believe that God can't use you anymore because you made a mistake, or you just feel like shame and guilt over
Yeah.
all of the things that you did wrong. But God doesn't see that part of you. He says, like, I see that sees the sin, but he knows what you can do apart from the sin,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what he wants you to accomplish. And he doesn't want you to
Yeah.
sit in whatever mistakes that you made,
Yeah.
because he wants to use you for the good, and he can use you for the good.
Yeah. And he goes as
Mhm.
far as to like give that person a new name
Yeah,
and a new
exactly.
purpose and a new joy.
Because it was Saul, and now
Um,
it's Paul. So,
so really cool. If you
mhm.
look in Acts 14, Stella put this in the notes too. We
I
get
did.
to see that,
Oh,
yeah, Acts
mhm,
14:19, where the Jews were in Antioch
mhm.
and a crowd came over to them and they stoned Paul
Oh, yeah,
to the point of thinking he was dead.
yeah.
And then he stood up
Mhm.
and walked back into the city.
Mhm. I love how much the Bible just paraphrases it. He was stoned, and then he got back up, and he walked
Yeah,
to
it's
the
like
city.
he didn't lay there for like
It's
I
like
don't know what
he lay
happened.
there in agony for days, and then he eventually got
No,
the
the
strength.
next day
No.
he got up
Oh,
and
yeah.
left the
I guess
city
the
the
next day.
next day.
Uh-huh.
So
There's
yeah,
no description.
the disciples gathered around him. I'm
Mhm.
assuming like let's read between the lines. Like the disciples gathered around him, brought him some water, and like just prayed the heck
Probably.
out of him, and were like, "Oh my gosh, God! Like, okay, can you take this bruise away? Can you take that broken bone? God,
Uh-huh.
heal this one." And all of a
Like,
sudden,
inflate this lung that has been,
yeah,
like
it was like seriously like he's in Fortnite
Mhm,
and he's just like crawling
mhm.
around on all fours, like someone revive me, revive me. He gets to the very last point, and they just like
Uh-huh.
Jesus help this person.
Exactly. Yeah, so that, like
I just made Paul a Fortnite character.
yes, you did.
I'm just saying,
I'm gonna
like
start a count on how many times you mentioned Fortnite in these podcasts.
it's relatable. It's
Yeah,
relatable. I
it's
mean, like
relatable, I guess.
the majority. You're not the
I
majority.
know.
You are the
I'm not.
minority.
I'm the minority in this
The
case.
majority of people identify with Fortnite,
Yeah, I know. I can't. I'm sorry.
and you know what I'm saying. Even
I
when
know
I
what you're
say
saying.
like
'Cause
they
I
crawl on
played
all
it
fours.
once, and I
Yeah,
was like,
and then you
I hid
died, and
behind a
you
rock
were
the
the
whole.
first person to
No,
die.
no, I wasn't. I hid behind like a rock or like a shipping container for like half of it. It was just
And then you were the first person to die.
no. I made it pretty far hiding. You can make it pretty far when you hide.
You
If you
can
hide
you
good.
can win if you
I'm a
hide.
really good
Actually,
hider in Fortnite. So.
okay. Anyways, so that's just another cool miracle that
Mhm.
so Paul basically experienced like miraculously being healed
Yeah.
because you don't get stoned and then
Uh-huh.
like we're talking real rocks like chunks of granite and limestone like
Yeah. Oh gosh.
thrown at your face, and he stood up and walked to the next
Yeah.
town the next day. He
Like.
didn't ride a donkey, he didn't get in a chariot, he
Mm-mm.
walked.
Yeah. He
um
suffered for the things that he was doing, and he still did it, even though, like, he knew that, like.
Follow through, baby, that's what it's all
Uh-huh.
about.
Yeah. Like in almost every single chapter, he's persecuted at some point, and he still is like, okay, I'm go to the next town. I guess I did
Yeah,
what I
he's like,
could.
I'm doing it right
Uh
because I'm
huh.
getting persecuted.
Exactly. I planted the seed. That's all that matters, and he keeps going. And
Yeah.
I think that's really important too, is because Paul didn't like falter. He wasn't like, oh, I'm sick of this. This is done, or I'm done with this. I keep getting hurt at every turn. No one's believing me. No one is listening to me. They all think that I'm crazy. I'm done with this. I quit. He doesn't do that. He just keeps going. I think that's super
Yeah.
important too. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I want to
Mhm.
skip ahead here to 23,
Yeah,
which
I
I guess
had that
isn't
highlighted too.
that far ahead, but
No.
I really like 23, kind of like what we wanted to mention here. But there's
Mhm.
this plot to kill Paul, and so basically, there were Jews, which was the sect of religion that Paul was with, persecuting Christians before he became a Christian, right?
Mhm.
And so these Jews like had a conspiracy to kill Paul because they realized like how much good he was doing for this new religion,
Yeah.
and they had what they would call a righteous anger towards him because of like all the good he was doing. So
Mhm.
um, they bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. So
Mhm.
40 men do this, and they went to chief priests and elders and said, "We've taken a solemn oath not to eat anything until we've killed Paul." And the Sanhedrin petitioned the commanders to bring him before you on the pretext of warning more accurate information about his case. We are ready to kill him before he gets here.
Yeah.
So basically, they set up this whole plan to kill Paul. They're like,
To ambush him
we're
and.
gonna ambush him. We're gonna like say he's
Mhm.
coming for this so that he can share this thing, but instead they're gonna
Mhm.
try to kill him. And How does the story end?
I actually don't know. I'm not gonna lie
Well,
to you. I
let's
don't
finish
know.
reading it.
I think he. What does he do?
Don't give him. So basically, Paul called one of the centurions and said, "Take this young man to the commander. He has something to tell him." So he took him.
Because someone saw what they were doing, and then he
Yeah,
was
there
like,
was a young man who
"Wait,
like saw
don't
and
do
warned
that."
Paul,
Uh huh.
and then the young man went to them and gave them a message. He said, and Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul before the Sanhedrin tomorrow on the pretext of wanting to more accurate information about him. Don't give it in to them because more than 40 of them are waiting in ambush for him. They have
Mhm.
taken an oath not to eat or drink until they have killed him. They are ready now, waiting
Yeah.
for your consent to the request. The commander dismissed the young man with this warning: that you don't tell anyone that you have reported this to me.
Mhm.
So, um, it's kind of cool actually because Paul like had this relationship with some like Roman like soldiers and centurions.
Yeah. Yeah. It mentions that a
It
little
mentions
bit.
that back in the part where he like kind of like leads this individual to Jesus after like raising
Yeah.
doesn't he like raise his daughter from the dead or something?
There's something about Did I delete that or
We
did
made
I
a note
keep
about
typing
it.
it?
Let's make sure that we got it. Acts
Oh my
20
god.
verse 10.
Yeah.
Paul went down, threw himself
He
to the young man
raised
and put his
someone
arms.
from the
Don't be
dead.
alarmed, he said. He's alive. So Paul like
Mhm.
raised this young man from the dead, and it
Mhm.
allow and he does that like prays for people, does different things, and it kind of begins to
Mhm.
form this connection with different people, not the
Yeah.
Jews because they hate him, but then he's forming these
Mhm.
connections with like Roman centurions and Paul as actually a Roman citizen. And so
Mhm.
because he's a Roman citizen, he kind of has this extra relationship with the soldiers too. And so
Yeah.
they kind of like work counter against this plan. But the
Mhm.
reason we point it out is because so often stuff like this will like pop up in our lives where we feel like why, like how did I get here? I just like all of a sudden I feel attacked. All of a sudden I feel
Mhm.
like there's this plot to mess with my purity, to mess with my holiness, to mess with like my calling, and that's just kind of wild. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
But the part that we don't see is like God working
Mhm.
around us to
Yeah.
like deliver us
Other
from it,
people.
right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Let's
It's
talk
really
about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think so. I read this, and that's like the first thing that I noticed was because especially because Paul was beginning to do like a lot in all these cities with all these people, like a lot. Like he was able to tell a lot of people about Jesus and like his death and resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot. So he was kind of. So you could say that Paul was kind of like on a roll, I guess. And
On a roll.
on a, what?
I
That's
believe you.
okay.
I'm just reiterating the good stuff.
On a roll.
He was on a roll.
But yeah. So then these people that try to ambush him, and when I read that, I kind of it just I I take a lot of like literal things that happen, and I like to use them as like more metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I said that the enemy will try to attack you, and he will set ambushes to stop you from this path that you're on, what you're doing,
Yeah.
because if you're not doing anything, like if you say you're a Christian, but like you aren't doing anything, like you're not like reading your Bible or like maybe go to church like on a Sunday or anything, but like you're not like doing anything to like continue this relationship with God,
Mm-hmm.
the enemy is not scared of that. He's like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's like, okay, I
Mhm.
lost this one. Like, you're still saved or whatever. You're
Yeah.
still gonna go to heaven,
But
but
like,
like, you're not gonna make an impact in your friends.
yeah,
You're not
exactly.
gonna like
Uh huh.
tell anyone about
You're
Jesus.
not. Yeah.
And he does, so he's like, okay, I guess I lost one, but
He
like, I
doesn't
don't have
really
to worry
care.
about them right now.
Exactly. So then when you start to like make moves and when you start to do things, that's when the enemy gets scared basically, and then
Yeah,
he
yeah.
tries to like to ambush you with whatever it is. And so I think it's just like really important to like realize that like if you're like just say like on a roll with whatever, like you're on a roll, you're on a path and you're moving forward, and then like something happens and you feel like you're stopped, you feel like you're hindered, that's not because you're doing a bad job, that's because the enemy's trying to get to you and he's trying to stop you from
Hmm.
whatever you're doing, what path you're on right now. And
That's so
so
real.
mhm.
I think the other part of that that's like really like let's think more simple. Like I love what you're thinking, but like let's
Mhm.
think even as simple as like just reading our Bible every day. And
Oh yeah,
this is why I
for sure.
tell people like don't just read the Bible on your phone. I've been guilty of this lately. I've been like taking notes on my phone in church and stuff because I
Me too,
keep
actually.
forgetting a notebook, which is fine. Like it's not the end of the
Mhm.
world. I
No.
don't encourage it for students specifically because yeah. There's just the older you
Unless you
get, the
have
more
really,
self-control you might have, or
unless you
something,
have
right?
really good self control,
And you don't.
those the Snapchat
So
notifications will get
you
you.
don't.
I don't. I'm guilty of it.
I am too, though. I mean, I am too. I'm not saying that,
Like
but
when people text me too, I'm like, but I don't have to answer. But
yeah, you don't answer my text very fast. Anyways, so
hey,
what I'm saying is like that's why like open a paper Bible and put your phone like upside down on do not
Mhm.
disturb, or like or upside down with the ringer off, like whatever you have to do to like
Mhm.
not
Oh,
allow a simple ambush of like you tell me like God
text
God has
notification.
control over the whole world and Satan has control over some things, right?
Mhm.
And he can totally like send a notification to your phone, not like
For sure.
this is Satan talking, but like you know what I'm saying, like
But
it's just
distract you.
the circumstance of
Mhm.
like, oh, like a snap thing, or like I got a notification on Instagram, I have a new follower,
Mhm.
like that's the problem with that, is like there's
Mhm.
just these little things. And so doing your best even to like help yourself
Mhm.
through the ambushes, to help yourself through the little traps, so that
And
you can,
realize it too.
yeah, so that you can
Mhm.
be intentional with that time. Like if
Mhm.
you set time aside to read the Bible and you get a notification on Instagram, all of a sudden the time that you set aside to read the Bible is 20 minutes of screen time.
I'm so guilty of that. I'm
Oh,
so
we all
guilty
are.
of it.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
all are.
Mhm.
That's why we have to go as far as to like put our phone down and be like, nobody needs me for 20 minutes. Like I can read it.
I've literally like sometimes I usually read my Bible in the morning. Just 'cause I like it just to start my day with it, and I feel like if I do it at night, I kind of forget about it. Um, but I've literally like sometimes I've literally caught myself like just scrolling on Instagram because I got a notification about something, like, oh, I'm gonna go look at this, and I've literally I shouldn't do this, but I've literally thrown my phone across my bed.
Okay.
I shouldn't do that, but I've literally
Someone's got
done that
money.
before. Hey,
I'm
there's
just kidding.
pillows. I have a lot of pillows. I put them at the pillows, like
No.
behind me, like because
No.
my walls like my bed's against a wall, so I just
Yeah.
like
No, like
toss it.
I remember
It's really aggressive, but it works for me. So.
even like when I used to get like frustrated with
Mhm.
Satan,
Yeah.
like I would literally just be like, "Oh, you suck." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just like yell at him. And I mean, I don't know if he hears me or not. But like
Mhm.
that's just like the, I don't know, just like simple little things. Like Satan wants to mess you with your prayer life. Like take your AirPods out and just pray.
Mhm.
Like don't, because I Siri does that thing every time I'm wearing my AirPods, she's reading text to me and I'm just like, "Stop."
I
How
hate
do I
when
turn
she
that
does
off,
that.
dude? I need to turn it off.
I'm sure you
Anyways,
can go into like you can probably go
it's
into
in
like the
settings for
Siri
sure.
in settings and then
But
like
I'm
go
like
in.
always having this really good thought, or like I'm like typing a sermon and I got my AirPods in, and then all of a sudden it's like, text from
Oh,
Jess. When are
dang.
you coming home? And I'm like, oh, dude, like you just ruined my vibe.
Oh,
Not
really?
Jess, but
But just
Siri.
text. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I
That's
hate when it does
crazy.
that.
I don't like it either because also whenever I get a text, it's always when my mom is like trying to talk to me.
Hmm.
I don't want to answer her because then she's gonna be like, "Oh wait, what did you say?" Like, makes me really angry.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Anyways, let's keep
But yeah,
rolling. Let's keep rolling.
that was
So,
our
anyways,
distraction.
there's so much that we can learn about Paul, that we can learn from the Book of Acts about perseverance. We can learn about like
Hmm.
prayer. We can learn about spiritual gifts. We can learn about healing, um, evangelism, like the whole thing.
Hmm.
But one thing that we really want to take away, and I think we've iterated it so much, so I'll just say
Yeah,
it once
definitely.
more. Like Paul just never lost sight of like who he was to God and who God was
Hmm.
is.
Who was to
Like
him?
he
Hmm.
never lost sight of that and just kept chasing it down. Like God told him what he wanted him to do, and he just went like, okay, it doesn't matter how many rocks hit me, I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how long I'm in
Doesn't
chains, I'm gonna keep
matter if
going.
I have to how many shifts I have to be on.
Yeah, he just
Hmm.
kept going. Like nothing was gonna stop Paul, and he had the favor of God. So although it looked
Hmm.
extremely difficult, I'm sure that it was full of joy and fruit,
Hmm.
which was awesome.
Yeah, and like the more you say yes to like what God asks of you, then I feel like it's easier for you to say yes to more.
Yeah.
Like when you start saying yes, and it's kind of like okay, like you know it's gonna be harder too as it goes
Oh,
on,
it
but
always gets
like
harder. Yeah.
always gonna get harder, but it becomes easier for you to say yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We can't
Mhm.
like we can't be afraid to be stretched,
Mhm.
because when we get stretched, we can take on more.
Yep.
And the stretching always hurts and it
Mhm.
always is uncomfortable, but like if we want to do more for the kingdom, if we want to have more leadership, if we want to see God work in greater ways, then we have to be willing to say yes despite the stretching.
Oh yeah.
And that's what Paul did. Even when stuff sucked, even when he was in jail, even when he was getting rocks thrown at him, he kept saying yes. And God
Mhm.
continued to stretch him and created in him essentially the New Testament.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
not the whole thing, but
Yeah,
he
like a
wrote a
good
lot of
good
it,
chunk of it.
inspired a lot of it. Like, he
Yeah.
was an
What did he?
incredible martyr
Yeah,
and
he was
man for the
great.
faith.
I love
So,
Paul. Paul's
really
my
cool.
favorite character in the book.
Um,
Mhm.
okay, final thought here to kind of wrap this up. What
I'm pointing to you. Are you
All
Are
right.
you gonna ask it or am I gonna ask it?
You don't normally ask questions. I see that I've just kind of been the question expert on the
Yeah,
podcast.
because you keep talking.
My voice carries more.
Yeah, I know. That's true. Okay, so
You're gonna ask it.
yeah,
Go.
I am.
Go.
I am.
It's all you.
So like we were talking about how God or not God, no, how well, okay. So how Paul never lost sight of what God had for him and the plan that God had for him. Was there any time that you ever felt like you lost sight of what God had for you or just of God in general, I guess? If you have any time
That's a
that you can
great
think of.
question. I don't think so.
Seriously?
Yeah, for real. So I will say that like
Dude.
I think what I never lost sight of like who God was for sure.
Yes.
Never
Yeah.
lost sight of like what he had for me
Mhm.
or like what I thought that he had for me.
Mhm.
But there were times, this
Mhm.
is the third finger, see? 1, 2, 3. There were times that I felt like I shifted in my head the way that he was gonna make it happen. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes
And so
sense.
like
Mhm.
I went through I always like loved church and did church like from junior high. I would say I started loving church in 6th grade when I got to come to youth group. And then kept going through church and have a ton of memories of all that. And then I started serving around 15, 16 years old. I was serving as like a worship leader, worship
Oh,
director,
okay.
doing all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff
Mhm.
at the church. It kind of felt like a job and I loved it. And so into college and stuff, I kept serving and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And when I lost a job at a church, I had been working there for a little while, doing some like marketing and stuff, and they just decided that I wasn't fitting the bill anymore.
Mm.
It was really uncomfortable because I had been there for 4 years,
Oh.
and they were just like no longer can you work here. And I was like, so like today? They were like, yes, please grab your stuff. And I was like, oh, cool. So that's when I like lost sight
Yeah.
of like how I thought God was gonna like work
Mhm.
in my life. Like I thought that's where he was going to have me. I thought this is what I was going to do. Like I had
Mhm.
all of my plans.
Yeah.
So then when God took me into the realm of the business world and I started working like a normal business job, I was like, okay,
Mhm.
like is this it? Is this the future? And that's
Mhm.
when like I'm just constantly
Were
thinking
you and
about like
Jessica married at that time?
yeah,
Okay.
was right after we got married. I was
Okay.
working at a marketing agency downtown Minneapolis and I really liked the job for
Mhm.
the most part. It was kind of monotonous
Mhm.
in form, but it's a good job. And so I liked that, but I felt like um I had lost sight of like my purpose. If that
Oh,
makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because I felt
Mhm.
like I wasn't making an impact. And so then like
Mhm.
I would throw my all into stuff that would make me feel like I had an impact. And basically what I'm trying to say is that I feel like I really quickly will be like, God, what are you doing? Like, where am I going? I'm always
Mhm.
wanting vision into the future because
You
I
wanna
feel
know
like
what's going on.
vision propels us forward. It gives us purpose and
Mhm.
encouragement to like dig deep and keep growing.
Mhm.
If we don't have vision, that's when we start to feel lost and like stuck.
Mhm.
And I hate feeling that way. And I
Yeah.
can't feel that way for very long without like going insane. And so I just
Mhm.
immediately start asking. And because I asked, I feel like God just revealed to me like, hey, this is a season. You're growing. You're healing.
Yeah. He needed to.
You're like
Mhm.
becoming okay with the fact that this church just like spit you out and
Mhm.
like you're gonna not have church hurt because I could have
Mm.
totally just had
Oh,
church hurt
for
and been like I
sure.
hate the church now.
For sure.
I don't ever want to work for a church and all this stuff. And so then
Mhm.
God like healed me, worked through me there, and brought me into a new space and all in perfect timing. I had like so much peace through the whole process, so it was
Mhm.
really cool.
Mhm.
um and because of that I'm saying like I feel like I've never lost sight of the plan that he had for me because I just asked him like why.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
feel like when we lose sight of it, we're scared of the why, and
Mhm.
so we don't ask him why.
Yeah.
Like when, say, like you're struggling with depression, or you're
Mhm.
like struggling with anxiety, or you're like you got fired, or you like didn't get the role or the team, or like whatever you want, right?
Mhm.
If you don't slow down and just say like, instead of beating yourself up, I'm not good enough, all this stuff, right? If
Mhm.
you don't slow down and go like, God, why? Like I don't know what I would have been done different, so why?
Mhm.
Then you'll just never know
Yeah.
like his purpose and his plan.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes
I
a lot
just
of
talked
sense.
for a
That's
long
really good.
time.
No, that's really good. Yeah, I like that a lot. Um, I think that's really cool. How like, okay, sorry, I thought I heard a noise.
You did.
I did. Okay. Um, no, yeah. So how like that whole journey of like you, because in a way because it made you grow, right?
I had to.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. I think it's really important for us to grow in the things that we
Hmm.
experience. We can't like
Yeah.
we can't just be like, oh, I'm mad this didn't happen. Like you said, like you couldn't just be church hurt about it. Like
I could have.
you could have, but like you chose to grow out to
Yeah.
grow instead and
Yeah.
grow and like ask God
Yeah.
why. So I think
Yeah.
that's really cool and really important. So
Yeah.
hmm
And I think that that's the thing that like younger people miss is they go like, "Oh, I'll never get to where that person is
hmm
because this is like because of this is in front of me or because I'm going through this." And
hmm
it's like, dude, like ask God why you're
yeah,
going through that
yeah,
and realize that it fits into the purpose of you getting to wherever
hmm
God wants you to be. Not where that
hmm
person is, but where God wants you to be.
yeah.
You'll never be them,
No,
but you will
but
be
you're not because you're not
but you
supposed to
can
be
be a
them.
really good you.
Uh-huh. You're not supposed to be them. You're supposed to be you.
Yeah.
hmm
And when people say you do you, like that doesn't mean like do whatever you want. That means
Oh no,
you do God's purpose for you really well.
I like that you keep raising.
Well, because I think that's the thing. Like you lean into the why, and like
Uh-huh.
God just begins to elevate you right away.
Yeah.
Like you lean into the why, and that
hmm
waiting season just became a lot shorter because you
hmm
started growing through it instead of like
hmm
fighting the why
And
for
also,
so
yeah,
long.
and also like understanding that like a waiting season is okay.
Yeah,
Like
it's
not
good for you.
being
It
like
has to happen.
mad and sitting in it. Like it's okay
Yeah,
that you're in a waiting season. There's a purpose for it. He's not just like I'm gonna make you
and
wait on
I'm
this to
talking
mess
about
with
real
you.
waiting seasons. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
for sure.
like 3 years in a job that you don't like. I'm talking about like
Yeah,
God calls you to signal this when you're 21, not when you're like 15 and 16 and you don't
yeah,
have a boyfriend yet.
yeah.
Sorry, Stella.
No,
But
I'm okay. I'm okay with
that's
that.
not a
I've
waiting
accepted
season
it.
because like you're not going to get married anyways. So it
hmm
becomes waiting when you like get to the point of like I'm ready for the next step, like
Yeah.
fully ready for the next step,
hmm
but I still have something in front of me that I know I have to beat
hmm
first, and God's not letting me go through that yet.
hmm
So he's like building up your strength, making sure you're ready, and
hmm
then he takes you through it. Just like this book, right? Like Paul,
hmm
like his waiting season was really short, it's 3 days, but like 3 days he sat
hmm
in that room, no food, water, fasted and prayed, like
Yeah.
had visions from God about how God was making unclean things
hmm
clean, and that God was going to say what was clean and what wasn't clean, and no
hmm
man could do that.
Yeah.
But he leaned into the why, and when he got knocked off his horse, he didn't go like ah, like you know what I mean? He just went like, who are you?
hmm Yeah.
Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And then God was like, this is who I am. Like I
hmm
am Jesus, and
Yeah.
this you're persecuting me. So now
hmm
go find out like what I need you to do.
Yeah. And it's okay to ask the why too. It's not like you're like angering God because you're asking why.
No, dude,
Like
he
it's
wants you
okay.
to ask why.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
He
okay
wants
to ask why.
it's a relationship. You have to ask questions to be
Because
in relationship.
he wants you to also he wants you to like he wants you to follow him with like a childlike faith, but he also wants you to understand if that makes sense.
Yeah, as
Like
much as we're
as
capable of
much as you can.
understanding, for
So.
sure. So the more you ask, the more you can know,
hmm
and the more he answers when you ask. If you
hmm
don't ask, then you can't complain that he doesn't talk to you because you didn't ask him to.
Yeah. It's like a friend. Like you're
Yeah,
texting a
for real.
friend.
You're like texting your friend and you just keep make statements over and over again. Why don't they ever ask me questions? Like, well, because you don't stop talking. You have
Yep.
to ask
You
and
have to
then
ask them
wait
something.
for them to respond.
hmm
Anyways, so Stella, answer the question that you asked me. Has there been a time in your life that you lost sight of God and his plan for you?
I feel like not I feel like I didn't necessarily lose sight of God, but I feel like I kind of just like was definitely in a season of just like I don't know what to
Mhm.
do, you know? So it was I'm trying to think. I don't know how old I was. I was like 12 or 13. But it was the first time I had to deal with loss.
Mhm.
And I like didn't I was young, so I didn't like know how to deal with it. I was like this person is just like all of a sudden gone. You know what I mean? And because I didn't know how to deal with it, I didn't ask anyone, how do I deal with this? How do I, how do I go through it? Like what's like what am I going to expect from it? I just like didn't expect anything at all and I kind of shut down.
Yeah.
Um just like emotionally because I didn't also want to deal with it. And so I was just like for like 6, 8-ish months I was just kind of like I don't know what to do. Like I just like didn't know. I didn't care about anything and I just was just like what's it's kind of like came to realization of like what do I do with my life now?
Yeah.
Like what do I like how do I handle it? Because I didn't know how to handle it. I just didn't know like I was like, well now like how do I handle just life in general? And so that was and it forced me to like grow in myself
Hmm.
and who I am and to realize that like God like that like sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. That God was walking this journey right beside me,
Yeah.
but I just didn't realize it because I didn't think like to ask about it because I didn't know because I was younger too.
Hmm.
So it took me a while to realize that like God was walking this path with me, and I just kind of like lost sight that like He is with me because He's always with you. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that was probably I would say my thing is that I just like shut down emotionally, and then I also shut down, I feel like, towards Him. Not like I stopped believing in Him. I just like I like going to church, but to me it was just kind of like fun,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I shut down emotionally, I shut down towards Him, and then I started talking to people about it, and then that's kind of when then I started to realize, and I was like, oh, like he's been going through this with me, and then I was like, okay, like I'm not alone in this, and then like my path with God. So
Yeah, that's so good.
mhm.
I wouldn't say
Yeah.
anything because it's just good. Good stuff.
I
Like, for
just
real,
I
it's
just
like
kept talking.
it's the shift. No,
Uh-huh.
you didn't. It's good. It's just that shift of like going,
Mhm.
I'm by myself, to like He's right here,
Yeah.
going through it,
Mhm.
struggling with me.
It's that realization.
And it takes
Mhm.
faith. It takes
Mhm.
courage to be willing to like let it
Mhm.
go.
Yeah, it totally grew me in my faith and courage and trusting in Him, like my faith and my trust in Him too.
Yeah. That's so
Mhm.
good. Awesome.
Mhm.
All right, well, we're going to wrap up this episode, I think.
Mhm.
And we just want to let you know, as a listener, and ourselves know, that it doesn't matter what we've done or will
Mhm.
do in a negative light.
Yeah.
Because it does not affect the plan that God has for us. There's
Mhm.
like, we can create poor circumstances for ourselves.
Mhm.
We have to deal with those. But at the end of the day, like, God wants to use you for
Mhm.
His kingdom, and He's going to use you as soon as you let Him use you.
And yeah, he will turn anything for the good. He turn anything for the good. Once you start realizing the good in everything, you can realize the God in everything. So
Say it louder.
once you realize the good in everything, you can realize the God in everything. Quote me on that.
Quote her and
Actually, don't quote me on that.
send us a comment saying that was cheesy.
Yeah,
Hey
thank
guys,
you.
we want you to subscribe, like the
Mhm.
podcast. Let us know your thoughts. Shoot us a DM on Instagram, or a comment on YouTube. Hopefully, this has been encouraging for you, and we are going to keep filming more episodes.
Mhm.
So we're excited about the podcast. Excited to help you grow in your faith and to grow ourselves.
Yeah. All right. I'm Stella.
I'm Cole.
This is the Mini Mike's podcast, and we're signing off.
Signing off, mini micers.
That is totally something you would say. It's when you see the good in everything, you see the God in everything. That's something you would totally say. You can't tell me that you wouldn't say that.
This is what I'm going to clip for.
I know. This is
Peace.
that's totally something that you would say.
Okay.
It sounds so like Cole.